So hello everybody, apologies for the poor sound. So today we're going to be making a working RSS feed reader. So this is a little program I knocked up just as a demo, so we can see how this works and how to make one. So we're just going to get a random feed off the internet, stick it in here and see what happens. Now the internet's very slow, it'll take a while to load, and also I'm not sure how Fraps works with these things running, so we're going to add that feed, and it worked pretty quickly actually. I'm quite surprised. So we've got our feed here, all our news, we can scroll along. Now if we add another feed, I'm just going to add the same one again just for ease. We create a new tab and display the data there again. Now it's quite a simple little project, and I'm going to run through kind of how to start a kind of software project if you've never kind of encountered or never made software before. So we start at Google, like everything. So what we want is a compiler to compile our code into an actual running program. So for this one I'm going to use Microsoft Visual Studio. Probably didn't need to type the whole thing in. 2013 is what we want, and we'll do a search for that. What that'll give us is developer tools, stuff like that. Hopefully this will be the link. We go to downloads, Visual Studio downloads, and I have the answer or the link here. So what we want is Visual Studio Express, because this is the free version, we don't want to pay for anything, and we want it for Windows Desktop, which is what we're running here. So we'll download that and install it. Now when you install it, you'll get this nice start page, lots of information here. You can check out what Visual C stuff there is, and that'll be quite interesting. So if you haven't coded in C#, it's one of the easier languages, and there's lots of libraries out there for it, and lots of stuff already done, so it takes a lot of the hard work out of it. It's quite a nice one to start as well, because it's very difficult to actually kill or damage anything. It kind of runs in a virtual environment, so yeah, it's kind of controlled and can't really break things. So .NET Pearls is a pretty good site to start on. As you can tell, my internet's slow. So we've got this is the home page for .NET Pearls. C# is, as I said, an easy language. This will help you out. This will tell you about your data types, stuff like that. If not, MSDN. So Microsoft Developer Network, that has got tons and tons of information about all the classes used and stuff like that. So we want to create a basic RSS feed reader. So in order to find out how to do that, we look at RSS feed in MSDN. So how to create a basic RSS feed, and that link's here. So what we've got here is essentially a how-to guide as how to write an RSS feed. Now there's a lot of stuff in here we don't need, and yeah, there are some kind of gotchas. Like this line here, I've tried it and it doesn't seem to work. It doesn't like strike me as being correct just on a kind of initial inspection, and I don't think it is. I think they might put these in just so people can't copy paste tons of code. I'm not sure. So this is what we're going to essentially come out with, something like this, not as complicated. I'm going to try and keep it nice and simple. So we've got our tools. We've got Visual Studio, we've got a reference for C#, and we've got an how-to guide from Microsoft as to how to create their basic RSS feed. So now we'll go into Visual Studio. Now, Visual Studio, you want to start a new project. As you can tell, I've had a couple here already. A couple of them didn't work. That's kind of standard. If you expect to be able to make a program work first time, you should think again, because I think it's very unlikely and it's very difficult. So we're just going to call this something I haven't already called something else. So RSS demo or something along those lines. So we'll try that. Maybe we need an underscore. No, we don't. And what this will do is take us to our opening page. I asked for a Windows Forms project, so we get these nice Windows forms. There are different types of projects. There's console projects, in which case you'll only get like a command line interface. I find the Windows Forms quite a nice one because it's got this graphical thing here that we can easily just drag and drop things on. Now I've got the toolbox down here. If you don't have that, that'll be in View and Toolbox, and that'll give you your toolbox. So what we're going to need, we are going to need a text box to input our URL. So we're going to need, wherever it's hiding, text box, text box, text box, text box. So we're going to need one of those. We'll just drop it anywhere for now. We're going to need a button to add the URL. And now we're going to need a tab control. Now, I quite like this tabulated layout. It gives us a way of differentiating between feeds, and it's just quite a neat way of doing things. So whenever I actually manage to find the tab layout, I should probably close some of these menus and toolbars we don't need, components we don't need, printing we don't need, dialogues we don't need. So tab control was right there and I just skipped past it. So tab control, we're going to chuck a tab control in there. Now everything's kind of flirting about. If we build this project using F5, we'll get our form pop up on the screen, and as you see, it looks horrible. I resize it, things disappear, it's crap. I wouldn't like to see that. So what Windows does is has these nice docking things. So I can dock and put things in boxes, and it all works quite nice like that. And the docking built-in kind of functionality will auto-scale things for you, which is quite nice. So to keep everything together, we're going to stick a group box in here. What we're going to do is chuck does that go inside? Chuck these buttons in there. So we've got our group box with our buttons now attached. Now what we want to do is go in our Properties tab. So Properties basically contains every bit of information you can kind of get and set about this object here, which is the group box. So what we're going to do is call our group box. Now this name here is the design name. So this will appear in your kind of code screen and needs to be in a certain format, so you can't put space marks and stuff like that. It's underscores, whatever. I'm not going to refer to this in code, so I'm not going to bother with that, and I'm just going to leave these things as defaults. You can change them, and it helps on like kind of larger coding projects if you do change them to make it something quite easy to recognize. So we're going to call this one our control box, and as you see, the pressing enter changes that name there. That's how you change the names of things. We're going to do that with our button. We're going to have add. Nothing else really has names. Now these tab pages here we're going to get to in a minute, because we don't actually want a default tab page, because if there's no feed added, we don't want tabs. Now docking. So to make this all pretty and scaled properly and look all nice like we want it, we're going to use these dockings. Now we've got these docking positions here. I'm going to stick that on the left. See, it sticks it on the left nicely. I'm going to take this tab control, which is the container in which the tabs sit in. So each one has a tab page, and that sits in the tab control. So I'm going to take the tab control, which contains the tab pages, and expand that one out, and it's hidden behind the control box. Now I find this happens when you drag this one in afterwards, so or like before this group box. So we'll delete that, and we'll just kill this tab control there, and we'll drop in another one, and this one should dock correctly. Don't ask me why it does this, it's just a problem there. So now we've got our tab pages and our control. So if we make this one big now, what we can actually do is scale it. And things do disappear, yeah, but if we make it full screen, this expands out full screen. This one's nice and tucked in the corner. That looks like quite a reasonable format. Now we can rescale these, and Microsoft, as you can see, gives us these nice little like lines for clipping them, so you can have everything neat and ordered, nice and tidy. Add will be in the middle, so we've got this kind of nice button layout here. Now we're going to take away these tab pages because we want to create them programmatically. We don't want to do that manually here. So now we've got an empty tab control, we've got a place for our URL, a text box, and we've got a button. And that's essentially all that this one consists of. Button, URL, and feed list. It's docked in the same way, as you can see, it expands exactly the same, so we've got a kind of base thing there. So now, we actually need to start coding. Now, initially, nothing kind of shows up. You can access your code through here. I think if we double click form 1 here, creates this, and we get our form 1 here. And this is the actual kind of code for the project, for this form here. We'll go into that in detail in a second. So another way of getting this one up, if you can't find it, is just double click a button. Now what this will do is put the kind of sender command, so it'll put some text in this. That is the on button clicked event. So if we double click that, now we've got this private void button click. So when I click this button, it's going to do whatever is in this kind of area highlighted here. Nothing at the moment, so it just does nothing. Okay, so now what we've got here is these kind of using statements and these kind of collections or namespaces, or I'm not too sure precisely what the terminology for this is. As I've said before, I'm kind of self-taught on this, so I don't know a lot of the terminology. All I know is that I can hack it and make it work. So we're going to need some extra ones of these, because what we're going to do is do some online stuff and some XML reading, and these basically define what I can put in the project. So from here, if I do something, for example, and now what you're going to see is the compiler will read what I'm typing and come up with suggestions for me. Now this is incredibly useful because it means I don't have to remember what things are called, and me being stupid, that really helps. So we'll look at system. So we're in system now, and what do we want to go to? We want to go to, I don't know, drawing. We'll see what we can do with the drawing. If I can spell correctly, there we go, drawing. Now what can we do with the drawing? We can draw lots of stuff, and this will just give us a drop-down menu of all that stuff that's contained within that kind of drawing, class, namespace, whatever you want to call it. I think it's namespace actually, I'm not sure. So we can draw image, and then we can see what goes on there, blah-de-da-de-da. So we'll come to this kind of thing a little bit later. So in order to give us kind of more functions in our project, we're going to have to add a couple of these references. So the first one we're going to add, we're going to say using system, if I can type, .xml. Now that is because XML is the format of a feed, the standard format of a feed. If you've ever opened a feed in your browser, you'll know it kind of looks something like name, whoops, yeah, that did wrong. My Windows is actually genuine, and I just haven't been asked to activate it yet. So we've got name, and then blah-de-da, and then something like this, name, blah-de-da, wait, see, it's auto-filled that for me, you know, that kind of thing. This is what an XML looks like. So we've basically got this class to read in those XMLs for us, so we don't have to bother with any kind of mucking about as to identifying what we want. Now the next thing we're going to use is system.service model. Now this is the way the system controls and runs services and stuff like that that go in the background. And so if we go using and system.service model, no, it's not there. So the thing is, there are tons and tons of these little things to include that all have different functions and stuff like that. They don't include them all in the project as standard. So we're going to have to add them ourselves. So we want a project and we want to add a reference. Now this will give us a list of everything. Now as you can see, there's tons of stuff. We just don't want to deal with all of that all the time. We only need it when we need it. So we are only going to add the things we need rather than adding them all and having everything to play with. So what we are looking for is system.service model. We're going to need system.service model, system.web, and I think that's about it. So we're going to close OK, and now what we can do is put them in. So system.service model. We're also going to need some sub kind of categories of system .service model, and we are going to need the description, so we can identify the descriptions on these things that we're going to be reading. We're going to need, whoops, there we go, system.service model.web, because we're going to be mucking about on the web, and we're also going to need system dot service model dot, and we're going to need syndication. Now syndication is basically what we're going to be doing, I think. We're going to be reading an RSS feed. RSS stands for really simple syndication. I don't know what complicated syndication is, but I find this quite simple anyway. So where did I get all this from? Where did I pull these crap from? I don't know them off the top of my head. I never did, never will do. I don't see a point in learning what all these things do. So I found out where these are from down here in the example. It goes plomp, we've got all these. So as you can see, I just literally nicked them straight from there and put them in my project because these people have needed them, so I'm going to need them. I didn't need these because these are already included in the project. Now, you say, where? It's not in here. But what actually there is, if I close up my references, close up my form, we've got this program.cs. Now this is where the actual program's and it runs. So it says, run this form, which is the first form we do. Now this is actually where the program is. This is just my kind of subclass, which is this form, which we'll go into in a second. So, as you can see, collections generics in here. So we don't need to include it in our form 1. They've included it on theirs because theirs is kind of standalone project. Theirs doesn't use the Windows Forms or anything like that. And you've got to kind of bear these things in mind, that what you're going to be doing is different from the example projects. So use them as a hint, don't use them as a copy thing. So what we've got here, we've got our namespace RSS demo. Now a namespace is where you collect classes, which is what these are. This is a public class, which means it's freely available for any other class to use or something like that. Not 100% sure, it doesn't really matter for this. So this is the name of our class, form 1, and what we're doing is referencing the generic Windows form in that, and that's what this colon form thing does. We are referencing that other form, or that like kind of parent form, of which ours is kind of like a different version of. So all this comes in as standard. We do not need to think about it at this moment. So what we need to do now is, for our button click, we need to read in this URL, which we're going to input in this box here. We're going to input our URL here, and we're going to need to, when we click it, we're going to need to read that URL and then put all the information out here. Now, what we're doing is building a basic feed reader, so we don't need all this crap, all this putting stuff on the internet, make my blog, that kind of stuff. So all we need is kind of this get blog code. So we need to create this XML reader, we need to read blah 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 blah. This is essentially the code we're interested in, these two blocks here. So first thing we're going to do is include all this in a statement called a try statement. Now what this will do is kind of give us some protection if the user inputs something wrong in that field, if they don't put in the proper URL, something like that. It'll stop the actual thing from crashing and just spit out an error instead. This is quite useful for kind of things that may go wrong, that you just want to catch the errors in your code. So the format of this is try, lock the code in here, and then we want to catch, if I spell correctly, catch anything that comes out, and we want to use the same brackets again where we put in our catch code. So now what that means is anything in that try statement is going to be kind of tested and see if there's any errors, and if there are errors, it's going to do whatever's in the catch statement. Here you can go message, box, dot, I don't know, show or whatever, something like that. Yeah, message, dot, create, or I don't know. You can put up an error message or something like that. At the moment we're not too interested. As I said, this isn't going to be a C# tutorial, so I'm just going over everything very quickly. So what we're going to have to do now is create that XML reader we saw before. Where was it? XML reader equals blah 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 blah. So we're going to go exactly the same, XML, and we want reader, reader, and we've got to name it. Now this is my personal peeve about programming and anything is naming things, because, well, I could call it blah, but I won't remember what that is later, so I'm going to call it feed, and then read XML. So I know that's my reader XML. And now what I have to do is set that equal to XML reader dot create, and as you can tell, this is literally just a copy from here. I am literally just taking all this, because it's going to be the same either way, regardless of how I want to do it. I'm going to have to go through these steps. So what I'm going to have to do is take the text from that text box we put in. So we've got our text box 1, which is the default name for the first text box you put down, and we just want .text. Do we have .text? Yeah. So we just want to put literally the text from that in there. So that's our URL. As you can see from the example project, they've typed in a URL in quotation marks to indicate that it's a string, which is just a sequence of like words or text, and that's the way the computer identifies strings. So they've put that in. Because my thing is text, it's already a string. I don't need to kind of put quotes on it. So anyway, so we've got our on button click, our URL goes into our XML reader.create. So now what we're going to have to do is create that syndication feed. So syndication feed, and we're going to call this feed, because that's what it is. And we're going to make that equal to the syndication feed dot load, and we are going to load our XML reader that we just created above, XML reader dot read XML, or feed dot read XML, whatever. Anyway, so now we've created that. Now what we're going to have to do is, because we want to store this information that's associated with this feed here, we want to store in this tab page. So now we've got to create a new tab page. So tab page, and we're going to just call this feed tab or something like that. So I'm going to stick with the naming convention, feed tab, and now we're going to have to create a new object. The tab page is an object, so we're going to have to use this new thing, new like identifier. So we're going to create it as a new tab page, and we're going to call it the title of the feed. As you could see in the example project, it came up with blah-de-da feed, and then it listed all the things. So what we're going to do is just take that from our feed, feed.title, see, nice and easy, and we're going to take a text form of that. So we're going to take that and we're going to stick that as the title of our tab page. So you notice I close off every line with one of these semicolons. That tells the compiler that this is the line of code. I can actually just carry on typing the next line up here, but to keep everything neat, I'll go down below. So we've created our new tab page. Now we want to add that tab page to our tab control that we've created. We created the tab control in the form designer, remember that one where I removed the extra tabs? So here we're going to programmatically create a tab. So we want our tab control 1 dot tabs, is it? Tab control 1 dot tabs, no, tab pages dot add, whoops, tab pages, oh crap, I just knocked the mouse, dot add. So now we're going to add our tab page, which is called, oh yeah, feed tab. Good naming, everybody. And so we're going to add that to our tab control. So now what we've done is blah 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 blah. So now when we paste our thing, we're going to add that, and it's going to come up with the name of the tab there. We can add extra things to this name, like take the, go through here, slice that out, and chuck that in front, whatever. You can do that in your own time. So now we've got our tab pages, and now we're going to add a control to the page. The control will be a list box. Now I'll just quickly show you what that is. a list box is a pretty good thing for storing like kind of listed items, which our thing will be. List box here, drag it on, whoop, oh yeah, because we don't have a tab page, so we'll just chuck it here. So we've got a list box, we can use our standard items, and what that'll do is just create a list of elements running down here. That's what I'm going to use to store the actual information coming in off a feed. So what we're going to have to do is create one of those and stick it into the tab page that we've just created. Now I've got to try and work out how to do this. So what I'm going to have to do is create a new list box, feed list, and we're going to do the same way we created our new tab page, equals new list box, and I don't need to add anything to that. So why does this have something in and why does this? Because this has a constructor and requires some input into, like, in order to construct it. So how we find that? So if we go new, like we'll just, can we copy paste this? Copy and paste, and we'll just get rid of this. So now we've got this thing pops up, and we can see we need something. Oh, we don't. We could call one without putting anything in, but we want a title. So we've got this option here. You can. This will pop up when you come to this kind of point where you're putting in things like that. Alright, so the list box didn't need anything because it doesn't actually display a name or anything like that, so we don't need to kind of add any extra information when we create that, because we're just going to fill it up, populate it with information at a later date. So now what we've got to do is feed tab dot control, so we need to add this control, does it, dot controls? No? Alright then, so, yeah, tab page, I swear I could add, so we've added our tab page, so create a list box. Now we are going to do, yeah, I swear we can do this. So, feed tab dot yeah, that'll keep on popping up. So yeah, I swear I did see control there. If I can type correctly, controls. Yeah, there we go. It's always in there. Dot add, and we want to add our feed list. So we're adding our feed list to that. So now we've created our feed our XML reader. We've loaded that with this feed. We've created a tab page with the title of the feed. We've added this tab page to our tab control, which we have in our designer, this one. So we've added the tab page to that. Now we've created this new list box object, and we are adding it to that control. Now, if we test this now, F5 to test, we'll stick our URL. So we'll go grab another URL from here, TV and radio, why not? And we'll chuck it in here. And we go add, it'll come up, and you see this list box is tiny up in the corner. It's not how we want it. We're not going to be able to read anything on there. So we go back to Visual Studio, and we are going to add now, well, we're not going to add, we are going to change the way this feed list looks. So what we want to do is we want to use that docking thing that we used earlier, because we can implement that programmatically. So we're going to change the way we dock that. So we're going to dock that in. Now, this one's popped up here, which is exactly what you want, and you'll find Visual Studio tries to predict what you're going to put in. So we needed style of docking, we saw that in that drop-down menu here. When we go dock, we've got this style of docking. So we need to find that in the code, so we use this dock style thing, dot, and what we want is, we want it to fill the screen. So now we've got our feed list, we've made it fill the screen. Now we want that horizontal scroll bar. It automatically adds the vertical scroll bar as standard, so we just want feed list dot horizontal scroll bar. Now this is Boolean, so we just want to make that true, which is a 1, which is just we activate it. So now we've got our list, we've got our reader, we've got everything. Now what we need to do is populate this list. Now to do this, we're going to have to do the same thing multiple times. Now in order to do that, we can create a loop. Now typically we'd write a for loop, which I'll show you as I go. So we've got this for, and now we declare an integer, just a number, int, and we can call it whatever we want. I'm going to call it n equals 0, so the integer starts off at 0, and we've got this kind of while something. So while n is less than or equal to, no, we want, whilst n is less than or equal to some value, say 50, and now what we want to do is increment n. Now we could do that n equals n plus 1, so the number equals itself, add 1, but they've kind of summarized that and you just add 2 pluses. Now that'll increment it by 1, we've got this thing here, put down there, and now we type in our thing, and what that'll do is increment n every single time it goes through, and I think it will do it 51 times. If we take away that, it'll do it 50 times, I think, just off the top of my head. If we want to check, we could take this out here. So we want to check what that does. And we can do console, please, console.write line, and we can just write n.toString, because we can only write strings in the console. N is a number, so we want to turn it to a string. We've got the standard function here which turns it into a string, which is words, which we can put down here. So now when the form will load, we get this loop, and it'll loop whilst this is true. So as you see here, it's done it 50 times because we've got 0, because we started at 0. So if we n equal 1, we've got, it'll do it 49 times or whatever. Oops, need to stop that one. So we'll take that out, go back. So we need that kind of loop. Now, rather than because we don't actually know how many items are in our feed, there could be hundreds, there could be 1. So we can't do that kind of thing because we've got to specify. Now what we could do is something like, I'm not sure if this works, feed dot length maybe? Length? No. Feed dot items dot length maybe? Length dot count? Count, or something like that. We can count the number, I don't know. We can count the number of items in the list and, work it out that way, but the C#'s got this quite nice, easy thing, which is a for each loop. So that essentially is a for loop, just with this extra bit, that's got an extra bit of calculation that we don't really need to know about because C#'s like that. So what we want to do is for each item in our feed list, we want to do some things like add them to the list box that we've got up here, this list box here that we've created. So for each, now they're called syndication items, if I can spell that correctly. For each syndication item, we're going to call them feed items, feed item, and then we've got this term in, and then we've got feed, feed. Now, this is going to spit out an error, and we're going, oh no, well, we've got all our items in feed, and we've got this, and this, and this. Now, if we look in our error list, it comes out with this blah, 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 long-ass thing that we don't really want to know. But all we know is that there's a problem here, it's highlighted it. Now the thing is, we're looking for each item in this thing here. Well, this thing here hides its items in this area feed.items. So now we're in, for each kind of item in this list of items, now that we've specified it as a list of items, we're going to do some stuff. Now, here's where you can like read in your feed and stuff like that, and then do some data processing it on it if you want, or you can save it to disk, or you can do whatever you want. But at the moment, we're just going to add this to the list box. So very simply, we want feed list. Whoops, didn't type that one correctly. So feed, and we want list, and we just want items. So we want to get the items in the list, and we want to add one to it. Simply enough. And what are we going to add? So we're going to add feed item. So we want to add the item that we've like cycled into, but we can't add that whole item. Or well, we can, but it wouldn't give us what we wanted because we want some text or whatever, and it would give us I don't know. I haven't tried it. Might be worth trying it if you're interested. So we want the feed title. Simply enough, feed title, and we want that in the form of text. So we want to add that to our list. Now, we want feed list dot items dot add, and now we want to add a different object or different thing. So we want the summary of the feed in this one. So feed item dot summary dot text. So now we want to do a spacer just so they all don't group up and hurt our eyes. So, whoops, I wanted the feed list. So feed list dot items dot add, and we just want to add a string. So remember with the quotation marks to declare it as a string, or so the compiler recognizes it as a string. And we just want a spacer, so we'll just put in some of these. So that's our spacer. So now we have the completed XML not XML, RSS feed reader or feed reader. So I'm not sure if it works with Atom feeds or anything like that. Might be worth checking. I'm sure there's something in this class here that means you can change it. So we'll paste our. Alright, we won't. We'll get a new link. We'll look at books this time. Love books, great things. So we'll stick them in here. Add that. Now here we go. We've got our feed. And now we can add it again, and we'll get our next tab. We can try something else. Hopefully my internet works and Fraps doesn't kill this or whatever. It should just work. Boom. Yeah, books and authors, interviews, telegraph destinations. You know, so we've kind of made our very simple feed reader. Now, it looks horrible. What's all this stuff? Wow, I don't want that. That's not something I'm interested in. So we need to do something to kind of cut all this crap off the end, because we're not interested in it. That's pictures and some formatting stuff, I don't know, tells us a link, some GIF down here. So, like, we just don't want it. Why? Why would they have that in the summary? It's because some people want to display pictures in their things and stuff like that. So what we're actually going to have to do is, I'm going to show you this just because, why not? Playing with it. So we've got to look at this string, we're getting this huge load of text, we've got to go through it, and then we've got to cut part of it off, and whatever. So it's going to be a bit of a hassle. So what we want is a string. This is not the most elegant way of doing this, this is not the best way of doing it. There's probably some built-in Visual Studio class or something up here that will give us access to something that does it automatically, so we don't even have to do all this bit. But I'm just trying to keep this simple. So we're going to call this our summary, and we're going to set it equal to our item, feed items, sorry, feed item dot summary dot text. So now we've got this string which is our feed item.summary.text. Now, I'm not very good at coding, I'll admit now. So I do these things, which is cheating, or not probably the incorrect way of doing it. I don't know what the correct way of doing it. Nobody's taught me a correct way. So I make these Boolean things, which are just 1 or 0 values, and I'm just going to have it running. So what I'm going to do now is create a loop that'll cycle through each character in this string summary and identify, because, alright, if we just comment them out, we'll just comment these two out using our double forward slashes as comments, and they go green so the compiler doesn't recognize them. We'll put in our telegraph destinations, add that again. Now, what we look is always the first character's this less than sign. So what I'm going to do, and this is why it's the kind of hacky way, the not correct way, is I'm going to read each character. If it's not one of these, I'm going to chuck it in my new string, or yeah, I'm going to chuck it in a new string, but if I hit this character here, I'm going to say, nah, sod it, we're not going to do any of this. So this Boolean thing I'm about to put in here is basically going to be true, and then when it hits this one, it'll turn false, and nothing more will happen to this string. We'll just go, alright, we've done that, and we'll take this string and chuck it somewhere else. Probably on this page here, rather than this huge long thing. So, in my very horrible way of doing it, we've got this bool running, and I'm going to make that true, because we need it to run when it starts. At the moment, it's giving me this squiggly thing, which is like this warning. It's never a sign. It's never used. Ignore that. It's pointless. I will use it. All right. So now we're going to make our string, which will be our fixed. So fixed sum. So our fixed summary, and at the moment we're just going to make that equal to nothing. So that is a string of nothing. It's a null string, I think it's called. So we want to add things to this nothing. Now each time this goes through this for loop, we're going to create this string, we're going to load it with some text, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. Really, these things should be up here, declared once, and then just set. And maybe at the end of the loop, I'll set this string to null, and then we'll go through again. But hacking, who cares? It doesn't have to be perfect. I just want to kind of show you what you can kind of do. So now we've got these kind of things that we're going to take from and build from. Go away. We're going to make another for each loop. Now these for each loops are really useful. Now, we've got these things called strings, but we want to look at a letter inside. Now, a string is basically an array, which is just like a table of characters. Each individual letter is a character. Now, what we're going to do is go for each character, and we're going to call it, see, naming things, always hard. We're going to call it, character data? I don't know. That'll do. So for each character data in this summary, we're going to do something. So what we're going to do? So we're going to say if, this is just to check, if what's inside this bracket is true, it'll do whatever's below. If it's false, it'll just ignore it. And these are quite nice statements, very useful, used a lot. So if our character data is not equal, now exclamation mark represents not in kind of coding, so we don't, if it's not equal to this character here, which is the first character that always comes up, we're going to log them into this. And if running. Now we don't have to have if running equal true or anything like that, because it's a boolean. It's either on or off. If accepts a boolean, so it's either on or off. So if this thing is equal to that and this is on, we're going to do what's inside here, and that is fixed summary is going to equal our fixed summary plus, whoop, I'll put space in there, plus our character data. So now what we're going to do is, oh, why don't you like this? There we go. Nice little thing. So it can only be applied to operands of character and string. So what I'm doing is here, I'm saying, is this character not equal to this string? And that means a string, because I've declared it with these things as a string, which is obviously wrong, because if a character equals a string, well, they're different things, so we can't really compare them. So we're going to get rid of that, and we're going to put these things around it. Now, these things indicate a character. Just the apostrophe, I think it is. And, yeah, apostrophe means character, and that just means it's an individual character. So, if our character isn't this, like Terminator, and we're running, we're going to do this. So, if it is that Terminator, we're going to have to do something else. So we're going to put in an else statement, which is kind of a continuation from the if statement. So what are we going to do? So we can do this, make it look all neat. So we're just going to turn running off. Just set it to false. So now what we've got is, if it's seen this character, it's not going to do this top bit. It's going to come down to this else bit, and it's going to do running equals false, which will turn off this, which means it'll never do this, and it'll just keep on turning that off. Doesn't really matter. Happy days. We've done what we wanted, I think. We'll see in a second. So now that was the summary. We want to replace this old summary with our new fixed one. So that we put in our fixed summary. Now if we run that, chuck in our thing and add that, now if you look, we've cut off all those pictures, all those extra details we didn't care about. So I hope from this you've got a kind of basic understanding of making a little XML reader and stuff like that. I'm just going to go into a couple of things which happen or which I do when I don't know how to do something. So say for example we didn't know how to turn this horizontal scroll bar on. I won't delete it, whatever. So we could do this kind of thing. We could go feed list and go dot and then look, everything is so much. But that doesn't really give us that much information. So if we look at horizontal scroll bar, gets a set of value, blah-de-da-de-da, what does that even mean? You know, there's some things in this which can be quite complicated. I've chosen quite a simple example. So if we don't know what that does, or we want to do something and we don't know how to do it, what we're going to do is go straight to MSDN. Microsoft Developers Network, pretty damn good. They help me a lot. They always put these how-tos, and they basically tell you what all their classes and stuff does. I think it's kind of a business thing. They want people to write software for their software, you know, blah, 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 blah. So what we can do here is go to the definition. So we can find where these things are defined. Now, this will be a class, I think. I'm not sure where we'll go. Oh yeah, we defined it up here. So if we have a look at our list box definition, we go into this, and this is the class list box made by the good people at Windows or whatever. So here we've got extra information. We can read all this and get some more information, but this is a bit of a chew to kind of go through all, like bigify all these things, try and check. It doesn't really tell us that information, you know. Not so bad. admittedly, with the list box, you've got it on your designer. You can kind of see the properties in here, and I'm pretty sure there's a horizontal scroll bar, true, false kind of property in there. But because we created our list box programmatically, we wanted to find out how to do it in software with this function. So how did I find this? Back to the MSDN, and I just want list box. Boom, list box, class. Windows systems windows.forms. So that, I think, is the namespace in which the class is. So now this tells us all about it in the same amount of detail. Well, it looks like it. So we want to find our horizontal scroll bar. So Control F, horizon with an I, please. Horizontal scroll bar. So what does this even do? So we look in here. When it loads, poof, there we go. Now look at all this information. Examples, tells us how to make list boxes, tells us all this extra information. I didn't even have to do any thinking there, apart from a bit of Googling. True to display the horizontal sim part. So there we go. We've got an example here. Listbox 1, horizontal scroll bar equals true. That's exactly what I've typed in here. So that's how you find out how to do stuff. You just have an idea of what to do. MSDN, blah-de-da. You know, the resources are out there. They're very good as well. Very good indeed. Stuff like this, I mean, if this actually works, I'm not sure what my internet's doing at the moment. Probably take a half hour. Well, this one will give you more details. Tells you blah-de-da, like gives you all the kind of how to declare them, how to set them, you know, like loads and loads of stuff like this. I mean, it looks like a right chew to kind of get into, but the best way to kind of start coding is to make a little project like this. So I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. If you want more videos like about coding and stuff like that, I'm not too sure. I don't really want to do tutorials on actually C# coding. There's plenty of resources that I've just shown you. There's probably video tutorials on C# coding and stuff like that. I just kind of wanted to show you what I've been up to. This is a little example. My aggregator's got a lot more of this kind of crap in, this kind of sorting through. Hacky, I know, but still, good fun, good fun. I hope you enjoy making your own projects and having fun yourself. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.